Hey everybody, welcome back. Today is the second part of our light and shadow box series. We started off with a light box last time. That was where you end up putting a light underneath this box that we've made, and then you can put a piece of paper on top. You turn on the light and then you can trace whatever it is that you've got between your paper and the light. Today, this is going to be turned into a shadow box instead. A shadow box is something that uses lights and shadows to create a picture. I give these away as prizes during the March Madness at our school, and so the person who won right before spring break has asked if she's still going to get her light box, and I had planned on doing it and then giving it to her when we got back. And coronavirus struck, and we have not been back to school since. So this is something that a lot of students seem to enjoy, and I thought maybe you'd want to make one at home yourself. The first thing that we're going to want to do is make sure that the paper we are using is cut to fit our light box that we've made. So we're flipping this over, and this was an 8 by 10. My sketchbook that I'm using here is a 9 by 12, and so what I have to do is cut those pieces down, and I've already done that here. I've gone ahead and I believe there's 5 of them. I've done enough of these in the past to know about how many are going to fit in here, and 5 is usually, I think, what I end up doing. You can always add more, you can always have less, it's up to you. Your box at home during these times might be made out of cardboard because you might not be able to get to a hardware store and purchase the wood. Your paper, this is out of a sketchbook. You might have to just settle for printer paper. It doesn't really matter as long as your paper is the same size as the glass you've used. So if all you've got is paper plates at home, but you have a little 3 by 4 frame, you could cut the center out of a paper plate and use that paper instead. Because I didn't get a whole lot of detail from the person who won this before we left for spring break, all I know is that they wanted a horse. So I'm just going to kind of make this up as I go. We're going to be working on the foreground first because foreground is what's closest to you. And so I'm just going to draw, and I think what I'm going to do is just fast forward all of this so that we can kind of keep this video a little bit shorter than the recent ones that we've had. Got this board so that I don't end up cutting through the paper and into my dining room table. I'm going to be using an X-Acto knife to cut this out. It's a lot easier to use an X-Acto knife, but it's also a lot more dangerous than using just a pair of scissors. So if you have one of these, ask mom and dad, safety first. If you don't, a scissors works just as well. It's just a little more time consuming, and you can't get as small of details as you can with something like this. So always safety first though. Make sure that you are asking permission before you are using something sharp like this. first one cut out, I'm going to want to go and erase any lines that may be showing from when I was drawing. And then I'm going to take my next piece of paper here, and what you're going to do is make the second layer. And basically anything that is covered up by this first layer is an area where you don't need to draw anything, because this is going to be in front of whatever you're drawing next. So you're layering it up on top. You can kind of see how the shadow starts to work when I raise this up like this. This one here, I've cut out an area where this is going to be like a pond or a lake or something like that. So when you're making one of these shadow boxes and you want to have water, you're going to want to cut out an area that is going to it's going to end up glued behind here, so that this is going to end up being a little bit lighter than this layer. This is going to have two layers because it's this layer plus this layer. And then obviously this area where it's cut out is only going to be one layer. And that's how you make it look like there is water there. So this is going to go behind like this. And I'm going to glue that on when I get there. But what you can do, in order to make sure that your reflection of your horse shows up exactly on here the way it's supposed to, is you can take this and flip it upside down, and you can trace this onto another piece of paper, so that way it's a mirror image. It's the opposite. This is the horse that I cut out. It is the same thing, except it's going to be flipped like this, and what you have to do is cut off its legs, because it should be, you wouldn't see this shadow of this in the ground. You're only going to see it in the lake area. So you have to cut this so that it matches up with the one that you already have here. Now that you have your, see if this shows up on the camera there, there you go. You've got your reflection of your horse on the water. You have to avoid putting any more layers of paper in this area. Otherwise, you're going to have too many layers of paper built up, and it's going to kind of muddy out your reflection here. So for example, the next layer that I have here is going to start up above here, and I'm going to cut out this area. Okay, so you're cutting this area out so that the light from behind is still going to be able to shine through here. So we put this up here, and then you can see that there's a layer of paper behind there, but it still shows our lake or our pond because this has a hole in it. This is an electric foam cutter. It's got a dial on it that lets you heat up basically a current that runs up a wire here, and this is a homemade board that is used to make sure that you're cutting straight. You don't have to have one of these. This is for cutting foam, and this is going to be the spacer that goes in between the layers of paper that I've made. You don't have to have this. You can use a piece of cardboard, you can use scissors, and you can cut your cardboard to space out in between your pieces of paper. I just like to use this because this is what I've always done, and so for me this is what's simplest. If you don't have one of these though, don't worry about it. So what I'm going to do here is turn on the current, and there's a little humming sound, and basically all this does is allows you to slice through a piece of foam. Just like that. Okay, so I'm going to do a whole bunch of these. I'm going to turn this up a little bit so that it cuts a little bit nicer, and we will fast forward through all of this, and we'll see you on the other side. Alright, here is our frame that we made before. I've glued a little strip of foam on the inside. You could maybe put your cardboard there. And the only reason I did that, normally I don't, is because I did try to put the student's initials right here. And the initials don't show up when they are blocked by this frame that I put on here. So, let me back out here. Whoops. There we go. So you guys can kind of see what we're doing. So all I'm doing here is putting these in upside down, facing the glass. You want to get some Windex and clean off your glass first. That's usually a good idea. Try to keep them up against the side there. Now I'm wondering if that extra piece of styrofoam I put in there is going to throw off my measurements here, because I might not be able to fit the light behind here like I want to. Hopefully I still can. If you've got the money, Amazon sells some LED lights with a remote, and the best way to do that is to run your LED strip along here, and then there's a little cord that sticks out so that you can plug it in, and then it comes with a little remote that has some batteries, and you can switch the colors, and you can make it flash or fade or whatever you want yours to do. Those are usually like $15 or $20 though, and when I make between 4 and 5 of these every March, that's a lot of money to be spending on prizes. So these are like the $3, $4 ones at Walmart. So what I'm going to try to do now, and hopefully it works, is there's this area down here, and I'm going to put a board on the back, and I'm going to stick this on the inside of that board so that the person can reach their hand under here and flip that on like that. So that'll be the next step. This is 11 and a half. So a piece of scrap wood cut to 11 and a half. And you want to be able to reach your hands around the inside and flip the switch up and down. And so that's the reason it would look better if this was on the inside, if it was flush, but then you'd have no room for this. So LED lights, you could put it on the inside, but with this one, it's going to have to go on the outside. My messy garage. It's organized. I know where everything is. Nobody else does.